Hi, welcome or welcome back to Pop Divert. So today I want to talk about the reason why we don't have a global superstar like Beyoncé or Rihanna, and why we won't be having one unless the artists or musicians do this one thing. And I will share it in the video shortly. So if this piques your interest, then stick around and let's get into it. If you're a music fanatic, you will know that over the last couple of years, I'd say maybe 5 to 8 years, perhaps, there's been a lot of conversation happening, particularly on social media, about who will be the next Beyonce and Rihanna. Now, if you're someone who grew up in the early to late 2000s like me, you will know that we had, the greats, your Michael Jackson, your Janet Jackson, and all those people, but we also had a healthy supply of new, fresh artists that we could look at and think, oh, this one is going far, this one will be a legend. And case in point, Beyonce, like, there's absolutely not one point in Beyonce's career where people didn't see her become the legend that she is. And Carrie Hilson was also another person where people were like, this girl is going far, right? Rihanna, same thing. And so nowadays, though, when we look at the artist, there's a lot of conversation on social media. You can do a brief check even here on YouTube. There's a lot of conversation happening. An artist comes up and they boom and everyone is celebrating, and then all of a sudden it's flop. This one is flopping, that one is flopping, this one is flopping. Who will be the next Beyonce? Who will be the next Rihanna? Why the girls aren't doing it anymore? Why the girls aren't singing anymore? Why the girls aren't performing anymore? So there's a lot of conversation happening in that aspect. And so I want to talk briefly about how Beyonce and Rihanna and, the greats as we know them now came to be the greats, and how they, managed to withstand the pressure of time. Now, I know Rihanna is no longer doing music, but we can only hope that she's going to come back, okay? We hope that she's going to come back. But yeah, basically in the early 2000s, I know Beyonce's been releasing music like since she was a child, through different groups that she was a part of. But she started her solo career, I think, in the early 2000s, probably 2001. But at the time, and I think this is where, like, I want to briefly, like, mention the political aspect. Like, politics play a huge role in everything, right? So in the early 2000s, the two global superpowers that were known, that everyone like really knew that this country is a superpower, was America and Russia. And automatically, by you becoming a global superpower, you have a lot of eyes on you. And, with America specifically, they took on everything, like the culture, the cultural influence, music, film, art, everything, the influence that America had was not just in the political or economic spaces, but in everything generally that America was doing, because it was classified as a global superpower, right? And so what this means is, when artists came out like Beyonce and all of that, they didn't have to do promo in other continents, such as, in Asia and in Africa. They didn't even do any promo. All the promo they did was in the US and sometimes in Europe, to promote their albums, to promote whatever work they're involved in. And automatically, by them generating hype in the US, everyone else in the world adopted, or bought into that hype. And we had, their music playing in our radio stations and our TV programs. And that is how I discovered Beyonce, right? It was absolutely no choice. I was listening to the radio and her music was playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is a great song. So that is how I discovered her, and that is how a lot of people outside of the Americas and Europe discovered her. And I think this is an important point to mention, because right now things have changed drastically. Where in the early 2000s, early to late 2000s, we didn't have much of an option as to who we listen to and all of those things. You just turn on the radio station and music just jumps at you, right? Without you choosing that this is the artist that I want to listen to. Now we have multiple platforms on our phones like that are easily accessible, and we get to choose who we want to listen to. We go on Spotify, we go on YouTube, we go on all these platforms, Apple Play, and we choose which artist we want to listen to. All right, and that is an important point to mention, and it is an important point basically in why we don't have a global superstar, why we don't have a Michael Jackson or a Beyoncé or a Rihanna as of yet. So now, with the introduction of those platforms, like your Spotify's and all of that, viewers and audiences have gotten a bit of autonomy in who they choose to listen to. So hype around radio stations doesn't really work anymore, okay? Artists have to actively promote their work to the audience that they want to attract in order for that audience to buy into their music, to get or jump on the hype and be like, oh, okay, this artist is actually really good, right? Well, unless people create music that goes viral on TikTok, but even with TikTok, like it still plays into this. You have to have a certain appeal that will appeal to an audience in, for instance, in Japan, or an audience in Nigeria, and all of those things. Okay, so that is how your Beyoncé's, your Rihanna's came up. And now with the new girls, they really, and I feel like this is a fault that can be attributed to the music industry. Back then, the main continents that people promoted music in was basically the Americas, like the US specifically, and then in Europe. And in Europe, it was mainly like the UK. So those were the two places that people focused their promotion. So right now, like, doing that today in this day and age as an artist really doesn't benefit you. For instance, with the girls that I'm going to mention, like Normani, Chloe, and Halle, I don't remember any of them promoting their albums outside of the US. I could be wrong, but I don't remember. So now what that means then is that their audience is mainly centered around the US, as people in other continents like, Asia and in Africa don't discover artists in the same manner that they did like in the early and late 2000s. People no longer listen to radio stations as much. So this means that if their music gets played in African and Asian radio stations as a result of the music like being big in the US, that means that not as many people will discover their music, because people generally don't listen to radio as much anymore. We now have podcasts, and people just choose to go on their Spotify or whatever app and listen or stream their music, right? So this is a very big disadvantage to artists in this day and age. And I will make an example. For instance, with Chloe, right? She was part of Chloe and Halle, and they were doing really well, especially on their last album. They had started being, discovered by a much more bigger audience as a result of the lockdown and them just, owning the lockdown. Now, when they split and went their separate ways, people were very excited to see what Chloe will create, because Chloe has always been the person who's very expressive when she's singing. Like, she has the personality, she has the dance moves, and overall the image of what a pop star could and should look like, right? So when she came out, people were very excited to see what she has to offer. However, that quickly turned sour because people couldn't really agree, I'd say, with the way that she chooses to express herself. You know, Chloe went through a phase, and I'll say it's a phase because I feel like every young star or person who was famous or popular or part of TV shows in America as a young child, they go through this phase where they want to show everyone that I'm grown now. I'm grown. I'm no longer that little girl. And in how they do that, like a lot of times, is they go rogue. Like Miley Cyrus was humping on things on stage and just being sexually explicit in her lyrics and in her behavior on stage and her costumes. It was a mess, a hot mess. And now Chloe also has that phase, and I think it's phasing out, right? But she also had that phase. She was licking on lollipops, she was licking microphones on stage, she was gyrating her music videos. um she was like humping on chairs, on clear chairs, and you can see like very intimate parts that you should not be seeing, right? And everything about her was very sexual, and that was a part of her that wanted to show the world that, hey guys, I'm grown. I'm now grown. Don't look at me like that little girl. I'm now a grown woman. And so people couldn't connect with that. They couldn't believe. It wasn't believable. It wasn't something that felt natural for her to do. For instance, when people like Ice Spice or Sexy Red, you know, acted the way that they did, which is sexually explicit as well, it people didn't go, that doesn't look like you. Like, nah, people, it was believable. But with Chloe, she has this sweetheart face and even her voice, and even when she goes on interviews and talks to people, like how she expresses herself in interviews is, you know, she's this smart girl. She's very nerdy, likes doing nerdy things, and then she goes on stage and she does all these things, and so it confused people. People didn't know how to place her or how to deal with or handle all of that. And so soon enough, people got tired of her. They decided, you know, we're canceling her. Well, not officially, but like people just stopped listening to her because they were frustrated that every time they look at something that Chloe is doing, for instance, a performance or a song or whatever, that it was somehow sexualized, and just people couldn't stand that. And so people just decided to not listen to her. Halle went through a similar thing, and with her, it was her relationship with her baby daddy, rapper and streamer, DDG. People were against the relationship from the onset. They felt like Halle is someone of a higher caliber and that she shouldn't be mingling with streamers who chase, you know, clout and always want to document their lives and just do all these stunts, pull stunts to attract views and all of that. So people felt like the two were not matched. They were a mismatch. Obviously, like everyone else does, like Halle didn't listen to anyone. She was like, nah, this is my mistake to make if it is a mistake. And you guys are just being used by the devil right now, and I rebuke you. And the result of that, now we know, is she had a baby. So with all of that, like, and I'm just trying to sum it up so that this video isn't long. But with all of that happening, the streamer boyfriend was proving everyone right. When it was time for Halle to shine, like at the premiere of The Little Mermaid, he was just doing clickbaity, nonsensical, disgusting things, like such as trying to outshine her or cover or rain on her parade, basically. And obviously she didn't see it as such, but everyone else saw it as such, and it just was so off-putting. So people didn't like that for her, and her reputation took a knock. People decided that, you know what, we're not going to listen to this girl. We're just not interested anymore, because she just proves to us that maybe we are the ones who are wrong. Maybe she is ghetto, and I mean, we don't like these people that she associates with, but she likes them, so maybe she is ghetto. So let's just stop, let's just pull away from her. And same thing happened with Normani, but with Normani, it's her record label sabotaging her and not allowing her to release music and things like that. And then she also went through a period where both of her parents got cancer, and as a result, like, she couldn't release any music, or even if she wanted to release music, she didn't have the energy to fight with her record label while her parents were going through cancer. So people got tired of waiting around, and they now just are disappointed and decided that we're not going to listen. So when she eventually released her album, people were like, nah, we're not interested. We don't want to hear it, right? So with all of that, you see the power that the fans now have over the artist, right? And it's I feel like it's also weird thing. It's a weird thing to say, because somehow, even in the early 2000s or before, fans still had some level of control. Like, if they didn't buy an artist's work or CDs and whatever, then the artist was not going to make money. However, I feel like now it's more than just buying. Like, the fans can actively harm an artist's reputation, which is what happened with these three: Chloe, Halle, and Normani. The fans, being what we call parasocial, they ruined their relationships with these artists. Because I feel like with Chloe, what she went through is nothing unique. Like, her being extra sexual and all of that, it wasn't unique. Artists did those things in the 90s and 80s, and people had their moments where they're like, oh my gosh, nah, girl, don't do that. But it wasn't, people would literally talk, obviously, but then the artist would still recover from that, like if they release music. So there's absolutely no way that Chloe should not have recovered from that, like 2 albums later. So yeah, but basically what I want to say with this, the whole point of this, is that the audience now has power, which means the same audience that can build you up can very easily tear you down. Like, the very audience that hypes you up and makes sure that other people discover your work is the very same audience that has the power to actually discourage people from listening to you because of whatever differences they have with you as an artist. And so I think the solution now to this is, and I'm not saying that this person is a perfect example that people should follow. However, I think that what they're doing is good, and they are on the right track to make sure that they do not suffer the fate of being completely cancelled by their fans, right? So the example I want to make is Tyla. So Tyla, we know that her fan base is very diverse. She comes from South Africa, so she has a strong African fan base. I'll say African because I know she has a lot of supporters from other countries as well, such as Zimbabwe, Kenya, Botswana, and a lot of other places as well. So she has a strong fan base in Africa, and then she has a strong fan base in Asia. Like, we see a lot of content creators, like for example on TikTok, from South Korea, from Japan, from China, who interact with her work, who always hype up whatever song she releases. So she has a very strong and solid fan base in Asia as well. And then in Europe, she has a very strong fan base. Like, the girlies and guys in the UK love Tyla down. So that is a very, very good balance to have. In the US, there are still people who support her, but we know that her fan base in the US is not as strong as in the other continents. And this is because of people choosing to misunderstand Tyla and her racial identity, which is something she unfortunately cannot control. So if you do not know, Tyla is a South African colored girl. And yeah, so when she broke into the US, like, she won a Grammy in 2023, I think. Yeah, 2023. She won a Grammy, and she obviously had like more eyes on her, particularly from the US. People were like, okay, who's this girl? She just won a Grammy. Who's this girl? And people discovered that she is a colored South African. And obviously, Black Americans were not happy with the term colored because it is triggering. It is very sensitive to them because it is a term, a derogatory term in the US that was used to refer to Black people during slavery. So yeah, so people had a moment where they were like, okay, no, why do you call yourself that? And they just didn't understand that the word means something completely different in South Africa. And I know there are other places as well, like Namibia, that also classify people as coloureds. So in the context of South Africa, a coloured person is someone who comes from a multiracial background. So it doesn't mean that you're biracial, like your mom is white or your dad is black type of, split. It means that there's so many, like your mom is half black, half Indian, your dad is half Malaysian, half something else. And so you are now a person birthed from people who have these different identities, like that they identify with. And the thing is with the rest of the world is we do not have the one job rule like America has. Like in America, even if your great grandmother is black, you are basically classified as black because you have a grandmother who is a black woman, right? So you are a black person. In South Africa, that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. So what colored South Africans do is they don't want to assume one identity over the other. Like they don't consider themselves as white, they don't consider themselves as black, they don't consider themselves as Asians, and they don't consider themselves as Indian. So they choose this identity of being a colored because they felt like it embraces each and every part of their DNA, each and every ethnicity that composes of their DNA, or that their DNA is composed of, rather. So people didn't really like that. And I feel like it wasn't as big of an issue before she went on The Breakfast Club. And it wasn't a big of an issue because she did have an interview that she did like a long time ago when she first started coming out. And she clarified, basically, she said exactly what I've just said, that, oh no, I'm colored. In South Africa, you are classified as colored because you come from a multi-racial, multi-ethnicity background, right? And so it's a group, it's a racial group of people. You have colored people who look like Indian, you have colored people who look slightly white, you have colored people who look Asian, and you have colored people who look black. So it's a racial group, okay? And she clarified it. And then she went on The Breakfast Club and she was asked this question, and her knowing that this question has been a cause of controversy and she didn't want to speak on it on that specific platform, because let's be real, like The Breakfast Club is no place to have conversations like that. Like they look for sensationalism and, trending topics, like something they can get clicks on fast. They're not a platform to discuss things like that and with the sensitivity that it requires, because in as much as it offends Black Americans to hear the word colored, it offends colored South Africans to hear that their racial group, that their great grandmothers, that their ancestors lived identifying with, is now supposed to be erased just because one group of people refuses to understand that it doesn't mean the same in your context where you come from, right? So she decided that she was not going to answer that. She looked back at her back, and someone from her team basically helped her and said, oh no, we don't want to answer that. And that caused a whole lot of unnecessary controversy. And so it was a big thing, and people decided that now we're not going to listen to Tyla. She's not for us. We're not going to listen to her. We're not going to listen to someone who offends us. And obviously she did come out and clarify again on Twitter now, and she posted a statement saying, guys, like my colored identity, I understand the context that in America it is a very sensitive thing. However, where I come from, it's not in that context. It's something completely different. However, I understand that it may be offensive to you to basically call me a colored woman, of which I don't require you to call me that. I am part Black, so if you feel like you relate to me as a Black woman, you can call me a Black woman, and I wouldn't mind, because I do have a Black DNA in me. And she tried to clarify, and people decided that nope, we're not going to listen to you, we're not going to hear you. And ever since that whole thing transpired, people, and by people I mean a lot of the American fan base, have basically been waiting on bated breath, like holding their breath to see the moment that she finally fails, right? And this can be seen when she released an EP composed of 4 songs. One, two, three, 4 songs. 4 songs. And people, attacked her and were laughing and kicking and saying that she's flopped. And they were celebrating that, right? They're like, oh, Miss Khaled flopped. And yeah, so you can see the power that the audience has, because in all her music that she has released, like from that point, it hasn't really charted in the US. It hasn't really charted in the US because people just refuse to listen to her. And that is the power that the audience have. And now, fortunately for Tyla, unlike the other girls like Chloe, Halle, Normani, her audience is decentralized. Her audience is not centered around the US fan base or the South African fan base. Her fan base is diverse. It is strong in Africa, it is strong in Europe, it is strong in Asia. And because of that, her music still gets amazing streams on digital platforms. Like, it gets amazing streams. The only thing she's not getting is that she's not getting like the commercial recognition like from the US, with obvious reason, of course. And so I think that is something that the other girls need to learn, and not just the other girls, but every young artist, every upcoming artist needs to learn. They need to deliberately market themselves to people in other continents, because that is exactly what Tyla did. She didn't just wake up one day and people in Europe were rooting for her. I remember when she first released her album, she went on different radio stations in Europe, different radio stations, different TV shows, different YouTube shows, and she did the same in the US. She did the same in Asia as well. And like, that is exactly what it means to decentralize your audience. Make sure that you promote yourself to different audiences, so that if you have differences with one audience, they don't have the power to take you down and like make you lose heart. Because as an artist, you want to create and you want people to listen to your music. Like, it hurts when people don't listen to your music. And basically, even with record labels, like, if people are not listening to your music, record labels will not back you. They will not give you the funds to actually help you release music. And we can see that with the likes of Chloe. I think Chloe, yeah. Her first album, she did have a lot of like promo going. And then her second album, there was not so much promo. And she even had to do TikTok shows like herself. She had to film herself, go live on TikTok and perform her new songs in an effort to basically promote her music. And with Normani, she's no longer like releasing music. And I'm pretty sure it's because the labels don't want to back her, because they feel like it's not an investment that can yield like some returns. And with Tyla, however, in as much as the American demographic are not listening to her music as much as the other ones are, her music is still charting. So her record label is still getting their return on investment. And I think that is what artists need to take an example like of or from, and learn from her. Yeah, so that is the secret sauce, guys. Like, it's decentralize your audience. Because even with Tyla, for instance, even in South Africa, like, people did try to cancel her. So it was, I think, last year, 2024, a beauty pageant, Miss SA. There was a contestant by the name of Chidima Adechina who entered the pageant, and then she was placed in the top 11. And when the top 11 was announced, people went crazy. Because her name and surname is not South African. It is absolutely not South African, and therefore people felt like, how is she entering Miss SA and she doesn't even have a name that is representative of South Africa? Like, I could understand that Chidima Ndlovu at least it means that, one of her parents is Nigerian and then the other one is South African. But with Chidima, both the name and surname were not South African. So people were asked, if people had questions like how is she able to enter Miss SA, and who are her parents, because she doesn't have a South African surname or name. So who are her parents? So with all of that, the whole thing going on social media ended up uncovering the fact that her mother did commit an identity fraud. She's not South African, and she did commit an identity fraud and basically stole someone's identity, and that was how she was able to register her kids as South African citizens. And so when that was released by the police, she decided that she would step down from Miss SA, and people were bullying the girl. Like, this went on for weeks. People were bullying the girl, and then Tyla took it to social media to be like, hi, guys, I'm always for South Africa, but you guys are bullying this girl and it is not cool. And then she said to Chidima, hey girl, you're doing great and I wish you the best for the future. Like, you're going to be great. So people saw that and they were like, oh my goodness, how dare you disrespect us? How dare you say we're bullying a scammer, a fraudster? Like, people were going ham on Tyla, and they're saying, just because you have a Grammy, you think you're all that now, we will cancel you, we will destroy you, we put you up there and now you think you're better, we are going to destroy you. Like, people on Twitter, there was a whole tirade of people hating on Tyla. And even with that, it didn't even put a dent in her streams or her ability to create music that people love, and in people basically receiving her music, because her music is trending. And even now in South Africa, people have long forgotten that and they are supporting Tyla. But like, that is to just bring emphasis to the point that even Tyla, like her core audience, not core, but like her audience of origin in South Africa, they couldn't even cancel her because the girl is diversified. Like, her audience is diversified. Just because one demographic is not happy with her doesn't mean that the show stops. Like, the show goes on because different audiences in different parts of the world, in different continents, are rooting for her. And that is what is important, and that is what I hope that artists nowadays are going to focus on and make sure that, they promote themselves to other audiences. And I feel like that would be the secret sauce in this day and age, because your likes of Beyoncé and all those people, Rihanna, in as much as they had controversies, but people didn't have that much power to cancel them. Like, you could decide that I'm not listening to her, and the next thing, boom, a Fire magazine cover comes out and you see British Vogue and it's Beyoncé or Rihanna, and you are fangirling like all over again. You want to take the pictures and paste them on your wall. Like, people didn't have that much power over celebrities' careers or artists' careers as they do right now. So with all that said, people have power. People, the same audience that can take you up and bring you up is the very same audience that can bring you down. So be smart, diversify, decentralize. Don't have an audience in one part of the world and think that you've made it. That can go south real quick. So that is it for this video. If you've enjoyed it and if you've reached this point or this part of the video, thank you so much. Please do give this video a thumbs up. Leave your comments, your opinion in the comment section down below. What do you think of this video? Is this something you agree with, or do you generally disagree? And yeah, let's keep the conversation going in the comment section, and I'll see you on the next one. For now, it's goodbye.